Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. It's time for a problem. And it's a problem that I've not wanted to discuss for so bloody long. I have straight out batted away DMs from people going, you got to talk about it, Jim. You got to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about VAR. But we're at a stage now where I think it's actually bringing... It's often not, but it's on occasion bringing people together. The fact that VAR is at such a crossroads and struggling to the point that it is, because how many years have it been part of our, footballing lives now, and we're not enjoying it. So I went to Twitter because what I wanted to do was this. I wanted to canvass opinion because everyone's getting annoyed at probably different things. And I think one thing, obviously, that is a massive problem, but also part of the brilliance of football, is bias, right? We all have a different bias. And often the referee is a guy in the middle who you hope, at the very least, doesn't have an outrageous bias, or certainly has the desire to be as correct and as fair as possible. So that can sometimes slap the face of us fans when we're biased towards different things. And when it comes to the sendings off with the Liverpool and Tottenham game, then that's one thing that you can talk about, which is subjective. But what I wanted to do, coming back to this tweet, was I wanted to get your opinion and understand where you guys are at when it comes to finding a solution for this. So I tweeted two things. I tweeted this one first. What's the worst thing about VAR? And there were a lot of responses. And then I said, okay, stage 2. For everyone who replied, what is your genuine solution? I've got my own thoughts, but I want to hear solutions, because we're all bored. We're all so bored and frustrated by it, and it's killing the game. So let's focus on the problems first and foremost. So the problems, according to reading all those tweets, go check out my Twitter, go check out that tweet more importantly, and you will see a whole host of different things. And I've kind of put together and filtered through what generally are the problems for you as fans when you're watching this. Now, there are loads of different roads I can go down when it comes to this, because I think I have an element of frustration here in the fact that no one's cared about this until now. And again, it's a big club thing. But what I'm trying to do here is go, okay, because it's happening to big clubs now all of a sudden we care. We couldn't care less when it was Sheffield United, really, in terms of the reverberations of what was literally goal line technology being incorrect, which makes all of these solutions that we're going to talk about far more difficult as well, let's be honest. There's more of a fanfare now because, it's louder, right? And that's disappointing. But if we spin it, what we can say is this. We can go, okay, right, we're all frustrated. What's happened has happened. And I've heard some people talking about replaying the game, and get real. Get real. Replay the game. Shut up. That's utter nonsense. You can't, you're going to do that to absolutely everything. Oh, okay, can we replay QPR Coventry from the weekend then? Because we should have had a penalty. It was Stonewall. But we don't have VAR in the Championship, so we got on with it. And that is actually, I'm going to go straight to the broader point in all of this, right from the start. Football and sport is often about life and life experiences, right? When you look at those two life experiences, it comes back to the problems here, actually. Part of life is accepting decisions that don't go your way. But because of, understandably, the money that's involved in the game, we think that we can turn what is a incredibly nuanced game into something binary. One of the tweets from Love for Words, Clive Whittingham, amazing writer for QPR, he said that, and I think that's a great way of putting it. And another thing that I think is important to me, another tweet, and forgive me, I can't remember your name, he said, we're trying to put colour into black and white. And again, I think that the soul of this video, the one thing from me, which I've been consistent on from the start, and I've never wanted to talk about VR, because it's boring. I don't care about that. I care about the game. I understand there's gossip involved. But if we are actually going to be all on our high horses and going, this ain't good enough, we have to come together. We have to look at what the problems are, establish what the solutions could be. And the problems is that the solutions are quite awkward. So, problems with VAR. What you said from that tweet, and there are like over 100 and 71 posts on it. I think that might have been just the solutions. Transparency. So transparency is interesting because what you can have here is a sort of a can of worms with transparency. And I think that's what Howard Webb's trying to be transparent in what's going on here and accepting that they are getting things wrong at time. And actually, I saw this on Instagram, like the amount of apologies that the pgmol have had to put out there. That comes with being transparent. And as much as you can be outraged by mistakes are going to happen. Mistakes are going to happen. But I think what's killing us all is that you thought that would be reduced somewhat. If you are going to accept this VAR game that we're playing here, it would be reduced somewhat. And it hasn't been so far. And so what you want there is to be an understanding. The problem I would have is the more transparency you provide, the more ammunition you provide people to get angry about. Inconsistency. I think that's absolutely fair. But again, I think it's difficult. I think intention is important in football. I really do. And what I would say is actually coming back to the sort of Curtis Jones thing. My team, QPR, we had Jack Colback, who had not a great first touch and then went over the ball and got the player. And that's what's happened, I think, with the Curtis Jones one. The amount of red cards that come from not the ideal touch and trying to retrieve that situation. Now, is there malice? Absolutely not. Is there intent to hurt the opposition? Of course there's not. You're just trying to get the ball back. We've seen it with Casemiro. I remember seeing Paul Pogba often using his body and those long legs to try and shield the ball, and then you get someone on the shin. There's not intent there. But I think a desire to find consistency with as many decisions as possible would be something that I understand would be enjoyable. Obviously for everyone. I think that comes with, say, the handball. But my problem with this is that I think common sense is important in refereeing, personally, and others might disagree with that. But I think that needs to be understood. But that comes back to this idea that it's so subjective. It's so difficult with the bulk of the rules when it comes to football. And football isn't rugby. Rugby, I know, has more rules, but rugby is a slower paced game. It is two sides in a straight line going at each other. And then if it comes to mauls and things like that, that is happening right in front of you as well. Football is so fast paced, I think it makes it very difficult to have that same kind of consistency. People saying the people running it, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. Their incompetence, or this idea of their incompetence, is because we're not really focusing on it when they get it right, because there's not a news story in that. So that feels a bit cheap, if I'm honest. Undermining refs. This idea that, I think this is something in this as well, that the respect towards the ref and their decisions and respect towards the subjectivity of football has led to VAR being used too much, and that is undermining the refs. And then they're getting told, go to the screen, and they go to the screen and see a screenshot of what they saw, and that does make it look worse. And it's almost code to go, look, change your mind. It's very rare that someone doesn't go to the screen without changing their mind. And again, take a shot every time I say subjective. It's a fucking subjective sport. The inability to celebrate moments. I think one thing to come back to transparency, is that a couple of tweets, people were saying that when I'm in the ground, the focus isn't on fans. They're making basically a TV show. So that's another problem with the transparency to the fans. When something's happening, do people know about it? So this idea of having referees with audio, I think that part of it, in terms of the instructions of what's being looked at, why it's being looked at, would be something to explore, quite possibly. This is a big one, I think, for all of us. When we're not really getting to where we want to be in terms of getting decisions correct, because again, you can't really get decisions correct. So with that comes this inability, or this initial idea of okay, what's gone wrong? Okay, so it's not offside. It can't be offside because he's just a thunderbolt from 30 yards. Well, hang on, but is there someone offside in between? That is killing this game. It is killing it. And do you know what it's killing it for as well? The mix of those two things is killing it for fans who want to go to the game, because that's part of the point, to go, to be with a group of people and to celebrate together. So that inability to celebrate, that needs to be paramount here. That has to be paramount. Like, you need to stay away from that as much as possible, because that is sacred. And then the spotlight and focus and constantly being on VAR. Here. That is a problem. I am so bored of talking about it, and I don't even talk about it. I stay away from it. I don't want to do this video, just to reiterate. But we are constantly talking about that. And when we are looking at this beautiful game of football, we're not talking about great skill, great tactics, great, individual moments of brilliance. We're talking about, well, we need to tick through the bits of VAR. And when it comes to content on a match of the day or things like that, you're utterly wasting the time there, because you're going, well, was it or wasn't it? And you can't always get that right. Let's have a look at the solutions. And one thing I do want to reflect on, because I think people are going to ask about it. I think Klopp did brilliantly. I thought he did so well, because I think this is the point the road that I want to go, is that I agree with Klopp in the idea that if me just getting on my soapbox and going, oh, I'm angry, sort it out, it's not getting us anywhere. Like, you've got someone, the most passionate man in football, one of them, getting to a point where he's been utterly, screwed over, and he's getting to a point where he's almost apathetic. But I think what he is solution-based, and he's trying to get to a point where, like, okay, look, it being about me or it being about Liverpool is not going to solve this. We need to solve this. As a community, and thinking of fans first, what are some collective ideas that can solve these problems? And that's where I have to utterly disagree with the idea of this statement. Not all of it. I think if you'd written, that feels a little bit punchy, but I think if you're fair, and when you are trying to be fair, you should read the whole article instead of the top line, taking all of the content. If we do that and you keep going, I think understandably they need to get their message across, and it results in the sporting integrity being undermined. I think we can all agree with that. And if they'd stopped with this statement here, I'm all in. I'm like, because you have to stand up for yourself. You have to speak. You've got to suggest, and you have to have a desire to get to solutions, right? And I think that's what you hear with the bulk of this. We fully accept the pressures that match officials work under. These pressures are supposed to be alleviated, not exacerbated by the existence and implementation of VAR. So what it's saying to me is that overall, Liverpool as a club, have decided they don't want VAR. It is therefore unsatisfactory that sufficient time was not afforded to allow the correct decision to be made. Again, I think you can air these frustrations, that such things have already been categorised as significant human error is also unacceptable, and any and all outcomes should be established only by the review of full transparency. Again, I don't think you can argue that. This is vital for the reliability of future decision making as it applies to all clubs. That's it. Bring everyone in. Being used to make improvements to processes in order to ensure this kind of situation cannot occur again. So they've come back off the idea that we don't want VAR anymore. So overall, quite balanced. In the meantime, we will explore the range of options available given the clear need for escalation and resolution. That, to me, I'm afraid, sounds like a threat. That we might sue you or something like that. And that is entitled at a very high level. I'm sorry. That's my opinion on that. To go, well, we're going to, I don't know, we have to escalate this. You're saying the game needs to escalate this, fine, but not yourselves. And this comes back to the solutions then. So let's have a look at the solutions that you put forward. There's a few that I think are interesting, that are good, and that were regularly said, right? First of all, scrap it. Now, I would scrap it. I wouldn't have started it. We can come back to that. So VAR transparency through mixing. Sorry, I typed this on my phone. Miking up the refs. I think there is something in this. I think overall, there's obviously got to be conversations when there are those flashpoints. But I don't want to hear them the whole time. But I think the problem is we are looking to refine this. And if we are looking to refine this, I think this is definitely something that we can do. And I think it will humanise the referees somewhat, which I think is important because we're not respecting them. And I think you'll have more clarity on the overall idea. I still think it will inevitably crumble a little bit because people will disagree with the words coming out of the referees' mouths. And that is very difficult when it is something like this. But we have seen it in other sports, and I think it's something that we should explore. I think it's something that we've seen with the right personalities when it comes to those referees. I think what's a problem is you might lose some referees because they don't want to talk. Or you'll have referees that we all speak about a lot of time going, why are you making this about you? We're kind of making it even more about them. So there are stumbling blocks there. But is it something to explore? Why not? Semi-automated offsides. We've seen that. I think this is one that needs to happen as soon as possible. Because I think you can take that out of the hands of human error then. Simple as that. And I think there's also when it's sort of, it's the lines, it's a graphic. Oh, that looks fancy. That looks switched on and looks correct. And actually, interestingly, people don't pick up on this. It's about a picture more so than an actual screenshot. Somehow people seem to believe in it a little bit more because you can't compare it. So I think semi-automated offsides, at least with that, what you can accept is that, okay, these are the rules for everyone. This is the line. You can sort of just have your peace with it because it feels finite. It feels clear. Real-time replays. I think for the referees, I think that's important. I think it's weird, isn't it? Like, I think there has to be a leaning towards the real-time replays because I think that allows for intent and for an understanding of the severity. I think you probably want a picture of all of them, but to focus clearly on the slow-mo ones, again, I think that's over-interference. And I think, in terms of real-time replays, I guess the one thing you could say with that is that can there be a desire to stick with the referee's decisions? A review challenge system, I think this would be used tactically, inevitably. But again, I think, like semi-automated offsides, I think that's something that can be explored. Only offsides favouring the attacking side. I think there's been a feeling that if it's just your arm or your armpit, you should give it to the attacking side. Again, I'm cool with that. VAR specialists instead of refs being shoehorned in. Forgive me, another typo. No, I think overall that's going to take time. Remove clear and obvious. Totally agree with this. I hate clear and obvious. It doesn't make any sense. By saying clear and obvious, what is clear and obvious? You're creating a new question. It's crap. It's trash. It needs to go. Bringing the best officials from around the world. Now, I think there's been a feeling that bin all the English referees. I don't think that's of use, or I don't think that's a good idea at all. But I think if there's a desire to bring the best officials around the world, I think what that would lead to is that the officiating in other leagues around the world, their governing bodies would be fuming at that as well. So I think that's a dangerous thing to do. But it is something obviously we've seen with players. So kind of, if it's me, I would say no, let's train and make our referees better. But I understand the desire for that. Referee post-match interviews, I think this is just an absolute can of worms waiting to be opened. I don't think it's of use. I think you're just still going to allow gossip and disagreement quite easily because, say it with me, it's a subjective game. Last one from me, acceptance. I think accept that VR's not going. So can we have that? Can we have semi-automated offsides? Do we want to have one? I would say one review, and you have to be correct with your review. And if you're not, then you get on with it. And I think only offsides, to be honest, I think real replays comes from an overall acceptance that the referee will make the best decisions they can. I think there has to be far more acceptance that you are going to get things wrong. But what things are there for you that you can not get wrong? With things that are like offsides for me, goal line technology, which has been incorrect, by the way. Things like that, I think we can put that down to science to a point, right? We can have the right camera angles, we can have the right lines, and at the highest level that can be in place. I think obviously you go into the Championship, the league below the Premier League, and we just get on with it. And we're fuming every week. The difference is it's not as noisy because people don't care. People don't care about QPR. People don't care about other teams in the Championship. So you air your grievances and you get on with it, which comes back to my initial point, which is like sometimes you have to respect hierarchy and respect a difference of opinion and get on with it. So threatening to sue feels a bit heavy for me, I'll be honest. And I think overall there needs to be, one, an acceptance that it's not going anywhere. I would love it to go away. And what I'm happy about, although it very rarely happens, is when QPR score a goal, I can just enjoy it. I'm not thinking, oh, what's the problem here? That needs to be a priority. That desire to be able to give people that moment again when they work hard all week and they want to watch their football team, especially the people that are in the grounds, that go and support their team, that create the amphitheatre, that create all of it. Without the crowd, it's nothing. It's crap. We saw that when it was COVID. So that needs to be there needs to be a refocus on that, because losing the ability to celebrate goals is an absolute travesty. Right, that is my problem with VAR. 20 minutes is long enough. For me, offsides at the highest level, get the technology in there. If the ball goes over the line, fine. Otherwise, leave it to the ref. Because you're never going to agree with each other. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe. There won't be another one on VAR. Hit the like button. Go check out the Jude Bellingham video and the Galatasaray video. I would really, really appreciate it. That's my doorbell. I'm off.